All right, what's up, people? So today we're going to be writing unit tests for our health inspection app. So let's get to it and sort this out. So just as a refresher, so last time what we pretty much had, we had this list of all the health inspections that might happen. And if you click on them, you'll get pushed to a detail view where you can see more information. And then if you're on a real device, you can pretty much make a call. So now we're going to start by writing out some unit tests. So let's just maximize Xcode first. And then we can just get rid of this right here. And now the first one that we're going to look at, right, is pretty much our first view model. So let's go to health, like our pretty much content view right here. And then let's hide our canvas right here. We don't really need canvas. And then you see the main thing we're going to test first is the health inspection view model, because that's where a lot of our logic is, pretty much all our logic. All right, so right here you can see it, basically just one function. And whenever we call that function, we make isLoading turn to true so that we can show the spinner. You want to refresh it, just jump back to the previous video. And you can see here, we call the API. So all this stuff right here can be tested. And we're going to write unit tests so that we can do this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a unit test bundle. So to do that, all we're going to do is jump right here. We're going to click on right here where we have this, our project. And then right here under targets, we're going to add a new target. A couple other ways that you can do this though. And you're going to type in like this. And you'll see some pop up here that says unit test bundle. And then you just hit next. And then it will give you like an automatic name. You can go with this if you want. I'm just going to stick with this. So health inspection test. For team, you don't have to put anything, or organization identifier. You could do something like com dot your name or whatever you want to call the app. Make sure the language is set to Swift. System testing. Instead of doing Swift testing, switch it to XC test. In a different video where we build another app, I'm going to show you how you use Swift testing. But for now, just the XC test. And then the rest of it can stay the same. So project, health inspection, or whatever you name your project, and target, same thing. Then just hit finish. And now when you hit finish, you're going to see this new folder over here, right? And then if you click in it, you see our tests. Another way how you can pretty much get here, right? If you go up here and then you hit this button or icon right here, that's like the testing icon, whatever they want to call it. And then if we go down here, you'll see these are basically all our tests right here. And then inside this file over here, right? This is like boilerplate, like a plugin, like some basic setup for how you can write your tests. So honestly, we don't need all of this. So we're going to gut this. Let's just copy, just highlight it, select it, whatever you want to call it. Or we're going to press delete. We don't need that. What we're going to do is basically make it that we can test our view models that we have in our app. So the first thing we need to do that is basically we have to make it that all our view models are accessible inside our unit test. Because I'm going to show you something. So say I was going to write something like var view model, and then I'm trying to type health inspection view model, right? You're gonna see this say like, yo, I have no idea what this is. And let me just make sure I wrote your name correct so you can see. I'll just jump over here, copy the name here, and then I'll jump back to our test and I'll paste it. And you see it says has no idea where this is. To fix this, we have to introduce our project to our test. So to do that, I'll comment this out for now, and then I'm gonna go up here, and then I'm gonna say something like at testable, and then I'm gonna say import, and then basically we're gonna import our like project. So it would be like health inspection. It's right here. And now it will more than likely autofill for you, so you'll get it. So now if I uncomment this right here, right, you'll see the color changes, which makes it know that like, yeah, basically Xcode knows that this file exists. So now we don't have that error anymore, and we can start using the different like classes and stuff that we made in our project. So the next thing we're gonna do is also pretty much look at whatever we're gonna need for our view model. So if we jump back to our health inspection view model, you'll see that the only dependency we have is services. Yeah, we have these other properties, but if you look at all of them, they're initialized. And if you look mainly at the initializer, this right here, you can see that the only thing that's required to create this view model is services. So boom, so you know that that's the only thing that we need. But one thing, if I don't know if you might remember, you might need to skip to the first video in this, is that if we look at services, the services that we're using is a protocol. So it's not a class like the one that we have down here. So our view model is expecting a protocol. And I remember I was saying to you that we did it this way because you want to set it up so that we can do our testing. So now you have to see why. So if we jump back to where we have our test right here, right? Naturally, I know that, there's a service that I need for it, but I don't want to just use, so if I go to services, I don't want to just call our class here because this is a real API service. Like I'm really going to make the API out to get health inspection data. In unit tests, you don't want to use live data. You want to use mock data or fake data. So to do this now, all you have to do is like, so boom, I will go back over to folder that we have here, right? And then I am gonna create a new folder inside our test folder. And I'm gonna just say new folder. In here, I'm just gonna call this mocks. And then inside mocks, I'm gonna create a new file. So Command N to open this up. And then inside here, I'll just say Swift file. And I'm gonna call this mock service or fake service, right? And then again, I'm gonna start by saying something like class. Then I'm gonna call it mock service. And so like this, I remember I basically want to make a fake version of a real service so that we can use this in our, you know what I mean? So basically I want to make it that this class conforms or has the abilities of the health services protocol. So this one right here. So I want it to have these abilities. I want it to have access to this function right here, right? I don't want to just use this concrete class again because this is a real service. Health in service info has a real service in it. I don't want to do that. So to do this now, I just have to make it to set up our fake mock service. I just have to make it that our class conforms to that protocol. But you're going to notice that we see the same error where basically if I just do health inspection services here, the test inside this test pretty much bundle, it has no idea what this is. And like we did before, to make it introduced to it, we have to do something like at testable import health inspections. And now if you give this a second, you'll see the color changes and it's like, oh yeah, I know what this is now. So as expected, you see it immediately like, yo, I need conform. There's a function that you need to have for you to be able to use me. So I just hit fix since we're familiar with this. I'm gonna give you some space here. And then right here, I'll get rid of this code block. So now we have a fake service that we can use. And that way, inside our actual health inspection services here, where we have a view model that requires a service, I'm gonna give it this fake service. All right. So before we go any more right here, let's jump back to our mock service or fake service. And then inside here, you're gonna see that it's saying like basically, again, it's expecting us to return an array, but we're not returning anything. So we see temporarily, I'm gonna put this right here, empty array. And up here now, what we're gonna do is create a variable, so something like this. And we could just call this mock result, right? And then we'll say result. And then I'll make it that there's an array that it can take, which is an array of health inspection models. And then also give it an error case too. And we'll use our error, health inspection error. Yeah. I'm gonna get rid of some of this so you can see more of what I'm typing. And then we have this right here. And now let's make this optional because it's not needed right now. So now what we're gonna do, this mock result, we're gonna use this as our testing tool, if you want to look at it like that. So I'm gonna show you it in a second, explain it a little bit more. But for now, inside our function, what we're gonna do is actually switch on this mock result. So we'll say something like switch mock result. I'll have it just fill it out for me. And then you see it fill it out like this. But literally what's happening is in the success case, you can see that it's going to return an array of health inspections. And then in the failure case, it's going to return health inspection service error, right? So in the success case, I don't want it to just say success. I want it to return, I want it to say like health inspections model or array or health inspections. And if you're not sure what this type is, again, you can just option click on it. And you can see it says, yo, this is an array of health inspection models. Let's just change the name to health inspections right here. And then I'm going to make it actually return that health inspection, right? And then for failure, it does, I like changing it to error, but we can look at the type too. And again, you can see it's a health inspection service error or custom error, pretty much, because we're switching on this mock result. And then we're not going to make it return an error. Remember, this is an error, so we're going to make it throw an error. So we'll say throw error, right? And then for this nil case is like, let's say for some reason it doesn't hit the success case, nor does it hit the failure case. It just hits some default case. What we're gonna do is make it return our unknown error. Remember that we have here. So if I jump into health inspection service error, you see that we do have this unknown error case right here. We're gonna make it return that one if we don't know what it is. So we'll say health inspection service error. And we're just gonna hit it with unknown. And for this, you could just say something went wrong, or you could just leave it blank. Up to you. But for the TV, I'll add something went wrong. All right. So now basically we have our fake mock service or fake service. So different from what we were doing over here, where we are using a real service. So health inspection services info uses a real endpoint, this right here, actually go and get some data from the API. And our fake one, basically, it's going to use this mock result. We're going to give it fake data so we can use it. And you're going to see how. So now that our mock service is done, what we're going to do now is jump back to health inspection services. And then inside here, remember we have a view model that we need. We're going to create another type. So we're going to say var, and we're going to call this, let's just call it mock service. So easy for us to follow. And we're going to make it our fake service type, so mock service, and then hit that with a bang. So the next thing that we're going to do is whenever you're writing unit tests, there's like two functions that you have to set up. One of them is called literal setup, and the other one is called tear down. So let's write those in. Let's type in setup, and you might get this one first that has a class right here. It always happens to me. So I'm just giving you a heads up. Make sure you don't use this one. So if anything, you can just delete that class one. I don't want a class function. You pretty much just want this one right here. And then inside of it, you call like super.setup. So you can make it like, yo, do all the regular stuff that you usually do in the setup function, but I want to do some other stuff after you do that. So the other stuff that we want to do is basically initialize our view model, create our view model. So we're going to say like, boom, view model. And then we'll say, well, the health inspection view model. And we know that our health inspection view model requires a service, pretty much class that conforms to health inspection services protocol. And we have one of those, mock service. So let's go up here and actually put this up here. So we'll say mock service. And then we'll say mock service is equal to mock service, which is our fake service we just made. And then I'm going to toss this inside for our view model. And now our view model is ready for use. So one thing I like to do, I like to just adding the tear down function right away, just to get it out of the way. And again, you see, it gave me that class one. And then I'll just say super.tear down, and then I'll do mock service, and I'll set this to nil, and then view model, I'll set this to nil. So you might be wondering, why are we doing this? The reason is basically this tear down function gets called after all of our tests finish running. And it's basically saying like, it's just cleaning up. It's like, all right, you don't need the mock service anymore. Set that to nil, free up some space. You don't need a view model anymore since the test's done run. Free it up, need some space. So just think of this as setup happens first, and then after all the tests and everything done running and so forth, then teardown happens just to clean up. So yeah. So usually people don't do it like this. Usually people try to put it like at the bottom right here. But just for this time, I'm gonna be nice to you and I'm gonna put it in between just so this makes more sense. In the next view model we do, which is a detailed view model, we'll do it the regular way. But for now, I'm being nice to you. So the first thing that we want to test, right? If we jump to our health inspection view model, that's the biggest thing like when it comes to unit testing. What exactly should we test? So if we look in our health inspection view model, it's really like one function we have, which is this fetch health inspection data. But you can see a ton of stuff happens in here. So we have a property called is loading that gets turned to true immediately when this is called. And then after our API is called, we actually change is loading back to false. So we want to make sure that it's getting changed back to false after we get the data. Otherwise, you're going to see that spinner on the screen nonstop, and we don't want that. Also, we want to make sure that if there's an error case, error does happen, then is loading does get changed to false and that spinner isn't stuck. We can also check to make sure that whatever error message we're showing on the screen is the correct type and it matches with the error. But for now, let's just stick with the basic one and we're going to test if a successful API call is made, what should happen. So we're going to say, jump back to our test right here. I'm going to write a function called func test. I'm going to say successfully fetch inspection data. And one thing I'm gonna tell you straight off the bat, well, two things. Whenever you're writing tests, a unit test, always try to start the name of the function with test. It actually helps they don't Xcode kind of recognize that this is a test, so that you can get like this diamond thing here so you can just run individual tests. The second thing though is that tests usually have some really long names. So this is a long name, but trust me, unit tests functions usually have long names, so it's all right. Anyways, so now what we're gonna do basically is start using our view model to replicate what should happen if the API is successful. So first, what we're gonna do, right, is we're gonna go inside our mock service. I remember that parameter we made, that mock result parameter, that can take either a success case or an error case. We're gonna do, what's this? I'm gonna say that success. We're gonna do the success case first since that's what we're testing for. And if this still doesn't make sense to you, like how am I do that? How is he doing that? If we jump back to our mock service, you'll see that result. I remember result, this type right here. It's a type that Apple made that makes it that you can handle both success cases and error cases pretty easy. Super simple way I explained it, but that's the point. So in a success, the result type is basically saying for result types, if it's a success case, then give me back an array of health inspection models. And then this is the comma. If it's a failure case, give me back a health inspection service error. So that's right here what our function is doing. So we're switching on whatever result that we have to see what we get back. Cool, nice. So now inside this mock service that mock results, right? For our success case, we want it to return an array of health inspections model. Let's just put the array here first, and then we'll type in health inspection model. And this is the part I kind of hate, but where it's like you gotta fill out this fake data, but we're gonna bang it out real quick. So let's give it a fake business name. I will call this, let's just call it Nerdy Yachty. Nerdy Yachty Business. Cool. And then for the street, I'll call it 123 Nerdy. And then for the cuisine description, remember this is like the type of food there. So I'll call this Japan Jamaican food. And then for violation description, I don't really want to give it a bad description, but I'll just give it a description. Food is made well done. Okay. not bad, but yeah. And then for inspection date, again, it's expecting a date type, so I can just put dot and then just pick some random date like distant future or whatever. And then for borrow, let's just put Manhattan. And then for zip code, let's just do 1000. Grade, that's a A, of course. For 100. And then phone number, I'll do something like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 9 0. Cool. So that's just filling out this mot data. All right. So now we have this array with a health inspection model that we can use. You can pretty much put this on a new line if you really want to make it look neater. I'll leave that up to you. Right now, I'm not really stressing it as much, so I'll just leave this as is. So now the next thing that we're gonna do, right, is basically know that our mock service, mock result has a success case, which means that it has an array with this one health inspection. Now we can start doing. So what we're going to do is next, we're going to pretty much say view model, and then we're going to call it. So we're going to say fetch health inspection data right here, which is, remember, this is the literal function, yeah, in our view model. So fetch health inspection data, which is what we want to test. We want to test to see what happens when this is called. Like, is loading being changed? Everything working as expected? That's what we're going to do. But we see we get an error right here, right off the bat, where it's saying basically async call in a function that does not support concurrency. Remember from the previous videos, we knew that a quick fix to this is pretty much because fetch health inspection data, look into it, it's an async function, and we know that because the function has this keyword async, then we know that any function that is calling this, which is an async function, must also be async. So to fix it, we just go to boom, go up here and type in async. So now test successfully fetch health inspection data is now an async function and supports concurrency. You know what I mean? And now the next thing you're going to see, it says expression is async, but it's not marked with a wait. Pretty good giveaway, but I'm going to type it in so that you know what's happening. So a quick way to fix this is, let's write await here. And the reason why we have to do this is because fetch health inspection data is an asynchronous function. Whenever we call it, we have to add this keyword await. So basically, like, the data is coming from the back end and we need to know, like, yo, hold on and wait till we get this data, then do some other, pretty much. So now the next thing that we're going to do is basically jump here, right? And now we're going to check what should be happening after the API call is made, right? And if we're not sure what to test for, again, because that's always the biggest question, if we jump back to health inspection model, we can see that when it first gets called, it's set to true, but after it's been called, is loading is set to false. So what we want to do is basically check first, then after we call the API, and we know it's going to be a successful one, because remember, that's what we're sending the block to, so just to the success case. So we know it won't hit this catch block, you know what I mean? Because we have it in a success case. So what we can test now is basically, we can test one, if is the loading is now false after making the API call. So let's just test that real quick. So we'll jump back to our health inspection test. And then to test if something is true or false in your unit test, you type something like XCT assert. And it's a bunch of them. You see all of these that you can use here? It's a bunch of them. But we're going to do XCT assert false. As we're saying, basically check that this value is false, and if it isn't false, fail the test. So I'm gonna say boom, view model that is loading should be false. And the reason why, again, why it should be false is after we make this call, this fetch health inspection data, boom, is loading gets turned to false. So let's run our test. And now you see this diamond right here, that's how you run like an individual test. All right, so let's just click it. And then if it fails, basically you're gonna see a big red X that say that it fails. If it passes, you're gonna see, I think, a green mark, or pretty much just like a green check successful or something like that. So let it run. You can see as our testing is going, you see these little updates, cloning of iPhone, etc. And once it's done, you'll see that green check mark pop up as I've mentioned, if the test passed. All right, so now we get that test succeeded, and you also see this green check mark that says, well, yeah, the test passed. So now that we know that is loading is turned back to false after we made the API call, another thing that we could check is basically, is the value that we're getting back correct? So basically what we could do now is, because remember, if we jump into fetch health inspection data, whenever you call it, this property, health inspections, gets updated with that new data. So it should have this mock data that we have. So we should be able to check the values inside it and see if it's correct. So let's scroll up a bit more. We're gonna say firstly, let's just check to make sure it's actually has some value. So we'll say XCT assert equal. I use a different one, so I'll say equal. And for this one, I'll say like view model health inspections, right? And then I'm gonna say count so that we can get the number of elements in it. And the number of elements should be 1 since we only added 1 health inspection model. So if we run our tests again by just clicking the check mark again, or you can click this one to run all your tests. But if you want to run a test individually, just click this one. And let's give it a second. And then you see text test pass. And just to make sure that I'm not playing you right now, I'll change 1 to 0 or just anything else you want to change it to. And if you run the test again, it will fail. So you see we get that error right there. And I'll hide this portion here. And then it says XCT assert equal failed. 1 is not equal to 0. So the error kind of gives you a hint as to what is the problem. So unit tests are here to help you make your work safer, So let's set that back to 1, and we know that will pass. So let's add one more test in here. So basically what we could do is also check. So let's jump back in here to see what we want to check. So we also want to check to make sure that basically error message, if there's a case where we have a successful case, error message should be nil, should be empty, and show error alert should always be false since we don't want to toggle to show an alert on the screen if we have a success. Let's just check those real quick, and then we're going to dive into some of the values. So the first one we'll do is XCT assert false again. And we want to assert that view model that show error alert is false, right? And let's just run a test on that. Let's run that so we can get rid of that previous test failure. And now you see everything passes again. Other thing that we want to check is that error message parameter is also empty. So we could do something like XCT assert true. View model dot health inspections is empty. No, not health inspection, sorry. Error message is empty. Right? And because it should be empty in every success case. So let's just run our test again. And now we see that also succeeds. So the other one that we're going to do is basically we can check each of these parameters just to make sure that they are what we expect. I'm not going to do every single one of them because I feel like once I do 1 or 2, you get the point. So I'll just do something like, so I'll say XCT assert equal, and I'm going to say view model dot health inspection, right? And then obviously it's the first one since we only put 1 in there. We're going to say DBA, right? DBA should be the same as whatever you wrote right here. So new nerdy yardy business. I'm messing up my own name. And I'll add one more. Let's just run this before I add the other one. Just run that test. And you see, test succeeded again. So let's just add something else in here. I'll just copy this to save some time. And then instead of using DBA, let's use some, let's just do phone. So we'll say phone should be equal to this right here. So let's just copy this. And then we're going to plop this in here. And now if we run this, our test, see if we test succeeded again. Okay. So one thing I want to note is sometimes you might need to switch to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I've seen issues where if you run on just the iPhone 16 Pro, the tests for some reason just don't run. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the simulator being weird, but on the other ones, it seemed fine. So if you're not seeing it run and you're on the iPhone 16 Pro, try the iPhone 16 Pro Max or just some other simulator. So now our test case is pretty much tested. So the other thing that we want to test now is our failure case. So that's pretty much what happens in this catch block right here. We want to test to see if everything is working as expected in here. Let's just jump back here. And then we're going to add another function. And again, remember, start it off with test. And you can just make it pretty much mimic this one. So I'll copy this name kind of. I'm going to jump down here. And then instead of successfully, I'll just say failure. Our test failure. Failed, whichever one you want to do. And then inside here again, basically what I want to test to see is what happens when we get an error message, or when to get the data it fails. So to do that, again, we're going to use similar method. So we see like saw like how we up here we use mock service, not mock result, and we did the success case. Instead of success case, we're going to do the failure case. So we'll go up here. I'm going to say something like mock service dot mock result equal dot failure. You see it says right here, and as expected, it gives us a health inspection service error. And then we're going to test to see what happens when it's a HTTP URL error. So what we're going to do inside here, again, we're pretty used to this, so we're going to say view model dot fetch health inspection data. We're going to get some errors because this is a asynchronous function being called inside this function. So first, pop async right there. And then also we have to put a wait here. So remember, we know this is going to fail because we're passing in a failure case. So what we want to check now is basically, let's just check it. So we want to check that first, is loading is false. Even if API fails, we still want is loading to be false. So let's just check that that's what's happening. So we'll say XCT false, and we'll say view model that is loading. And now you see that we have a different triangle here, and then you see a triangle here. That's so that we can like run individual tests. So I could just run this, and it will only test this test case right here. It won't test the previous one, but you saw that that was successful. But if you wanted to run all of them, you just click the one up here by the class. Okay. Now, so we saw that this worked, where basically when, if it's an error case, and if there's an error in the API and we call it, is loading is false. So that's working as expected. What's another thing that we could test? We could test to see if we're getting the correct error message and if show error alert is actually true. So let's do error message first, right? So the first thing we can check at least to make sure is at least check that XCT, that error message is not empty. So we'll say assert, and let's say we could do false. We could do true. Let's do true. We did false a while ago. So we'll say view model that error message is not empty, right? So we're saying there should be an error message in here. Let's just run our test again. And you see, test succeeded. So that's just a basic one. But what if it's not the right error message, right? We know it's not empty, but what if it's a wrong error message? So let's just test that. So we'll say XCT assert equal, and basically the error message is, remember we're passing in that HTTP URL error. That's what we're expecting. So we could just copy this, right? Just copy this. And then right here, we could say error message. That's one. And then we could pretty much just check to see whatever that error message is for HTTP. URL error. So we could just jump here. Let's just grab this right here. That string, jump back over here. And when we run this, we could basically get that. So that's the first thing. Let's run this. So there is that, right? So just testing that out. But what we really want to test is basically, is the value inside view model.error message equal to this right here, right? So now let's just do that. So instead of just putting in the string, our raw string here, delete that. We're going to type in view model error message. And now we're going to try and run that test again to see if we're getting the correct error message for each error. You see, test succeeded. So if we jump back to our view model to see like, yo, what else we can test? Right now, you must be in a test frenzy. You must be like, yo, I want to test this, I want to test this, I want to test this. The next thing that we could test is basically, let's look at the view model. We have one other property, the show error alert Boolean. And basically, whenever we get an error, this should be true. So let's check to see if that's happening. So we could just go here and we'll say XET assert true. And we could say view model dot show error alert. And if we run this, see, it's true. We're getting that. So now basically you've just written unit tests for your health inspection view model that checks for successful cases and error cases. So yeah, you did some unit tests. So big up to you. Now we have another view model in here. Let me just open this up. Let's maximize this actually. And then let's open this up and we're going to jump over back to here. I think we have, I know we do. We have a detail view model and it does do some work. So you see here where we actually create the phone number that we're going to use to try to make a call. A good thing to do is to test to see if this is actually working as expected. So we're going to create another unit test. So inside here, basically you could just start by saying something like, so while inside your health inspection test, just do Command N. And then all I like to do, I like to just type in test. And then you see it say XCT unit test. Pick this one. Try not to mix it up with Swift testing. That's like the newer version. And we'll do that in the next video. But for now, XCT unit test. And hit next. And then we're going to call this detail view model test. Because that's what we're testing, the detail view model. And then it's going to just ask you where to save it. Make sure you have the test target here selected, not the regular target. Then just hit create. Again, you know, they give us all this boilerplate code. Big up to Apple, but we don't really need this right now. So let's get rid of that. I remember one thing that we know we need is we're going to need our detail view model. But if we try to just type it in, we won't have access to it. So because we have to actually import our project, like set up like all those stuff in first. So to do that, we say @testable. Then we say import. Then we say health inspections, right? And now we can say var view model, and I said detail view model. That with a bang. This doesn't have a service in it, and if you're not sure, you can just look at it. It doesn't have a service in it, but it does have this mock model that it requires. So we'll use that instead. So in here, we just say, all right, view model, and then we could just say var, and then we could just call this our mock health inspection model, and we could do health inspection model. And then we could just make this. So I'm feeling pretty lazy right now. So I'm just going to grab the model from this one that we have. So we don't got to type out all of that again. So let's just copy this. But if you're feeling like it, yeah, type it out. And then here, so we'll just plot that right there. So now this is our mock model that we're going to use for our view model. So now, again, remember the two functions that we need. We need a setup and we need a teardown. Setup is where, like it says, is how we start setting up everything, like adding, initializing our view models and any type of other dependencies that we might have. So we start by saying setup. Let's hit setup here. Usually, if you hit the first one, it always gives you, if you hit the first one, it always gives you this one with the class. That's not the one that we want. So let's just delete that. And then inside here, do super.setup so that we have the setup function do everything that it usually does that doesn't concern us first, and then do our stuff. So what we want to do is initialize our view model. So we'll say something like view model is equal to detail view model that requires an inspection model, and pretty much this up here that we created. So we'll just throw this in, and now we're good. Remember, it doesn't need a service, so that's why we're not doing the whole mock service thing. It just requires a model. And again, just as a reminder, how you know what it requires, you just pretty much just check the initializer. Okay. All right, so let's jump back. And then the first and pretty much the only function we're going to create to test is, we jump in here, is this create phone number function. Let's just test to make sure this is working. So let's grab it, grab the name. Kind of weird, as programmers are pretty lazy. So we say test create phone number, right? And I'll hide this test distractions. And now basically what we're going to do is basically check to see if it's formatting the phone number properly. And if you're kind of hazy as to what we were doing in here, so basically to create the phone number, basically we use this string here, so tell colon slash slash, and then we pretty much combine the strings. So pretty much whatever is inside the model for the phone value, we combine it with this, and then we return that to create the actual kind of phone number that we're going to use. So inside our model, the phone number is 12345678890. So we're expecting it to be like tell colon slash slash 12345678890. So let's test to see if that works. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to say phone view model that create phone number. It's going to return us a string, and let's just get some space. Formatted phone number, right? All right, and now we're going to put what we expect it to be. So I'm expecting it to be something like expected phone number. I'm expecting it to be something like tell slash slash, and then the same values that we have here. Copy that for a second, paste that here. And now we're going to use, since we're comparing these two same values, a good one to use, XET assert equal. If I test if two things are equal. So we're going to test to see if formatted phone number is equal to my expected phone number. Formatted phone number, I'm going to say expected phone number here. Nice. So now we're going to hit our test and run it. And now you see that test pass. So it's working as expected. But let's just try to break some just to make sure maybe it's not the, the Xcode being weird. Let's just remove some, like anything, doesn't really matter. Let's change this number. And let's run this again. You see, we immediately get the test fails, and the warning, pretty much the error kind of just gives us a good hint. It says like, yo, you look at the numbers, it says failed, this is not equal to this. And you can see it's because we don't have the 3. If we add back the 3 and we rerun our tests, see, we get a success. So now you've basically written, well, you have written unit tests for your health inspection view model, and you wrote a unit test for your detail view model. So big up to you. The last thing that I wanted to show you is, remember, we got to tear it down. We got to clean up after ourselves. We can't be leaving the place messy, you feel me? So we'll say tear down. And if we click this one, you see, we didn't say class for this one. Let's just put super, not tear down. And let's just clean up this. So we'll say view model equal nil. And just for fun of it, let's run everything. So this top test diamond here by the class. When we hit that, see, test succeeded. Now this is looking really good. And if you're in the case where it's like you want to run both the detail view model test and you want to run the health inspection view model test, you just have to go to this check right here. So I'll start from here. So you go over here and then click the diamond at the very top here, and you run it. And now this will run all of our tests. So not just detailed view model, but health inspection view model too. And you see the results here with these green check marks. And you can click on it. If you don't believe me, you can just click on it and so there. So now we have tested our our app, and we wrote unit tests for it. So now we're sure that it's working much better. So if you like this, and you want to see more, definitely just like, comment, and share. And again, remember the motto: anyone can learn anything with time, practice, and failures. All right, I'm out. It's the nerdy Yardy. Later.